Peace. What up, world? We are back at it again. Plot in Progress, episode number 26. Keeping this train rolling with the good information, inspiration. We're going to keep the movement strong. So today we have a very special guest. We will introduce her shortly. But before we do that, the good brother True has some bars for us. Who spit those bars?
Yeah, you know what it is. And this line right here, when I first heard this joint, man, it was crazy because it was just his first line. And I was just like, damn, just after I heard that first line. And so that's the only bar I'm going to spit from this verse. See if y'all can get it.
One bar?
Yeah.
Profound.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever thought about what it would be like if everybody woke up and said, fuck work? It only works if everybody do it, though. You know what I'm saying? But y'all have any clue? Y'all need any hints?
Yeah, we'll take
definitely need a hint.
That sounds like a Nas. That sounds like a Nas line. But go ahead.
It's from the Fled soundtrack. Y'all remember that movie?
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah. Any y'all ever?
Ain't nobody watched that, man.
I've watched that.
You got me. I'm stumped.
Region. What's the region?
South. Dirty.
Dirty. No.
Dirty South. Another hint.
Goody Mob.
It's Goody Mob. It's Goody Mob.
Oh, it is Goody Mob. Okay.
That was a big gift. The name of the song is Remember What I Said.
I don't know if I heard that song.
I've never heard it.
Yeah, look it up when we done, man. That's man. He spit that line. I was just like, oh, I had to pause for a sec because, I was like, that's real talk.
Okay, that's a good one. I'm gonna check that one out.
Yeah.
I thought I had all my bases covered when it comes to like Dungeon Family material, but I don't think I've heard that one. I'm gonna check that out for sure. Well, that's a hell of a good one. All right, y'all. So we have a guest with us. We have Sister Nika of ABC. I'm about to mess it up, and I'm sorry. Instead of doing that, I'm gonna turn it over to you because I know you got a lot going on with the Bayhive and also your other entity, that ABC Mobile Education Center. There it is. Yeah. So if you would, please just kind of give us an introduction of who you are, what you do, brief background, and then we'll get a little deeper into what it is you do so people can get full comprehension of what that looks like. I apologize for messing up the name of your organization. I knew I was going to do
that. You did. So yeah, my name is Nika Forte. I am the owner and operator of ABC Mobile Education Center. I'm also an urban farmer. I'm a beekeeper. I'm an educator, community organizer, mother, wife, sister. I'm all that. So yeah, so I teach beekeeping and I teach urban farming to my community so that we can be more food sovereign.
Awesome. So you're a beekeeper. What exactly is beekeeping, and how does one qualify themselves to be an official beekeeper? Or is this something that somebody can just kind of just pick it up and run with it? You know what I mean? Like trial and error type thing, or is there some sort of a credential that needs to be obtained?
So a beekeeper, I would say, is a mix between a zookeeper, a farmer, and a therapist. And I say that because you have to be able to manage a group of 20,000 bees. You have to be able to keep your queen happy, your workers working, and making sure everybody is fed. So your job as a beekeeper is to create an environment that is nurturing and healthy for some of the most important creatures on the planet. when it comes to qualifying as a beekeeper, I can't say you definitely need any type of education, even though there are certification programs out there. I would say that you do need training. So I wouldn't say that you would need to go to college or anything for it, even though there are classes. But I do think that you do have to have some type of training. That training should be hands-on. It's something that can be taught easily to anyone. That's even people who are afraid of bees. So I can't even say um, except people who are afraid of bees, but because you can even teach those who are afraid of bees not to be. Um, so your job is pretty much just to gain the skills that you need, because if you don't gain the skills you need, you could be doing more harm than good. So there does have to be some training involved, but anybody can be a beekeeper.
Awesome. Now you mentioned people being afraid of bees. That seems to be a common reality for a lot of people. And it's funny because this is something that is apparent with my kids. Like anytime a bee is around, everybody wants to freak out. And I'm obviously trying to educate them on the significance of bees to our existence. Can you expand on that piece in particular, like the importance of bees as far as contributing to the ecosystem? Because to my understanding, they are a foundational piece to that puzzle.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you asked that question, because a lot of times what I spend my time doing is correcting misinformation, right? People have a preconceived notion about bees and that every bee is just out to sting you for some reason, when that is absolutely not the case at all. Bees only sting in defense of themselves or their families, right? So just like any of you would do if someone ran up on you, you would defend yourself. If someone ran up on your queen and your family, you would defend yourselves. And so, but there's a lot of misconception. A bee does not want to sting you, because when a bee stings you, that means certain death, right? That they're sacrificing themselves for the greater good. Like, and so they're not doing it just to sting people. So a lot of people are afraid of bees, but you don't necessarily have to be afraid of bees. There are ways that you should act and respect a bee's space. No, like you definitely shouldn't swat at them. I mean, could you imagine a giant hand coming at your face and your only defense is a stinger, right? You would use that to defend yourself. Like so, um, and bees are definitely extremely important to the ecosystem. Bees are definitely unsung heroes on this planet. They pollinate about 1/3 of all the foods that's on your plate, all the vegetables that you have on your plate or fruits you have on your plate. It was said by Einstein that 4 years without bees is 4 years is the death of humans, right? Because you would have no one to pollinate. Now, I'm not saying that bees are the only pollinators on this planet, because they're not. Pollination happens in a lot of different ways. It happens by wind, birds, ants, other insects, but bees are the most proficient at it. And they do it at a scale that no other insect does. And in order for us to have trees and food that grow and produce fruit for us to eat, you need bees on this planet. And so I think that if people understood the importance of them when it comes to us living on this planet, and they understood that bees are not necessarily just out to sting people, but they're only doing it in defense of themselves, that can alleviate a lot of people's misconceived notions about them. And I think that one of the most calming environments I've ever been in is me in front of a hive, and the hum and the frequency that they emit, that regulates your body and forces you to be in the moment and regulate yourself and your emotions and your thoughts. So there's a lot more than to beekeeping than just keeping bees and collecting honey and talking about something that I consider is fun and that's important to the planet. But it's also about self-regulation and awareness and your connection to nature as well.
That's dope. That's dope. You mentioned something about therapy. Can you expound on that?
So the reason why I said that a beekeeper is kind of like a therapist is because it's your job to make sure that you manage and regulate your hive and keep them happy, right? It's your job to work them through any issues that they're having. So if they're being robbed, it's your job to jump in and try to prevent robbing from other insects robbing from the hive. It's your job to make sure that they have sufficient water and enough food to keep themselves happy and healthy through the season. So that's why I say that it's like being a therapist, but at the same time, it's like being in therapy because it forces you to be in the moment. So there's two, you're a therapist in one hand and you're receiving therapy from nature in the other. So that's kind of like my way of thinking when it comes to beekeeping.
Dope. That makes sense.
Very good. So you mentioned being in front of a hive and the effect that had on you. And you talked about frequency. I feel like there's a lot of iterations of that in nature that we tend to take for granted. Were you intentional about doing that, or is that something that you just came to realize through your work and that level of exposure?
So that's something I came to realize doing the work and also researching, diving more into the art of beekeeping and how it's been used for centuries across the planet in ways to heal communities and also as a way for as a sign or a tool in spirituality. And so it shows up in so many different ways. And so one of the first books that I read that kind of put me on that path was a book called The Shamanic Way of the Bee. And it really forces you to like connect with the bees in a spiritual way and see how you guys regulate each other when you're beekeeping and what that means for you. Also being in the now, or if you guys have read The Power of Now, like being in that moment where you're really in a still space and you're just listening to nature and letting it guide you. Bees will let you know what they need. Bees will move with you when you work through your hive if you're intentional, and you're mindful and you're respectful and you're open to the energy that they're emitting. They touch nature in a way that we as humans only wish that we can. And that energy rubs off on you as you're working the hives and you're connecting with the bees. So in particular, I name every queen in my hive. So every hive has one queen. That queen is the mother of the whole colony. I name her to have a better connection with her. My first queen that I named was Oshun. Oshun is a goddess or a deity within the Ifa practice, which is a part of my spirituality. She represents fertility, love, life, and bees also are a representation of that. And honey is a big part of her worship and her identity. And so that really like got me incorporating more of what I was doing into my spiritual practices and also including my spiritual practices in my beekeeping practices. And so I don't, there's a whole tangent that I can go on about how bees calm the spirit and again force us to be more connected to the land around us. And we are people of the earth, and we are more connected to the planet than we think. And practices like agriculture and beekeeping is something that we've done. You look back in caves in Egypt and Africa, and there are hieroglyphics of bees and honey, and it's seen as a sign of prosperity and wealth and health and so many other things. And so it's hard not to get into those type of mindsets and practices if you're really digging deep into this type of work. I'm sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, that's good. That's all great information. So I definitely would say that most have a lot of room for improvement as far as our relationship with bees, due to underexposure and miseducation or just being undereducated on the topic. because on a surface level, I would say most people have a shallow association with bees. We don't want to be stung, so stay away, but we like honey, right? So we want something from them in exchange. And then obviously there's a much deeper significance as far as what they provide to us. But I think those are the two primary associations. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth there, I would say, in terms of getting to know bees and the actual significance and actually appreciating that a whole lot more. And I'm guilty of that as well, for sure. So I appreciate everything that you're bringing to the conversation. So let's say I get like a sound level of education on beekeeping, and I'm getting ready to embark on this journey, and I'm starting, right? What does that look like? Does someone need to like transplant a colony to an ideal setting, or is it something that you can kind of start on a small scale and then attract more bees? How exactly does that work?
So there are several ways that you can do it. So definitely you can attract bees to a space, right? You can set up some frames or a hive, and there are things like lemongrass and things that you can put in there to try to attract bees during swarm season. I don't suggest that you do that in Arizona, um, only because, especially starting out, because the bees that you may capture may be more of an aggressive nature. Um, it's hard for me to get into this conversation when it comes to what type of bees you can and can't catch in Arizona, because there's a lot of stereotyping around bees, which is crazy. You wouldn't think that, but you definitely can catch swarms in different parts of the country. You can catch swarms here, but you also need to make sure that you buy a queen and you know how to install a new queen so that you know the genetic makeup of the bees that you have. You can order bees in a colony. They will come with a queen and a good number of bees, and you can purchase those and have them shipped to you, or you can buy them locally and you can install them on your space. So as a beginner, I would say that would be the best route to go, is to find a local beekeeper, someone that has been beekeeping for a while that actually does colony cells or queen cells to the community, and buy from them, and then you would take them and put them in place. There are some regulations in Arizona specifically that you have to follow. If you want to keep bees, you are allowed to keep a colony on your land or at your home. You just have to make sure that it's 25 feet from any high traffic areas, whether that's an alley or a fence line. And you definitely have to have a wall in front of them, which is called a flyover, which forces them to go up and over instead of straight ahead, which you want them to go up and over, so then they go out into the community to forage instead of just right in your immediate area, unless that's what you're trying to do. So there are some different rules and regulations around it, but it's really something that you can definitely do, and you can start in your backyard, and you can start small. And then once you decide that you love it, because it's hard to not love it once you start it, it's a very addictive hobby or a career to have, because you're always going to want to get more bees especially once you kind of, this is a kind of a weird term, but once you kind of like, I'll say, like create a bond with your bees. I will say that once you've created a bond with your bees, and because bees do know you, and your bees will know you, and they will get familiar with you, and they will recognize you when you go to your hive. And so that's from your scent, your smell, how you move through the hive. They recognize that, and so when you've built, a bond with them, you're going to want to buy more hives. So.
That's crazy, man. So it's like pets, kind of, in a way.
Yes, absolutely. You can register
never.
bees. You can register bees as livestock. They are actually considered a high value commodity in this country. It's just a lot of us don't beekeep. But yeah, we
I never
recommend
knew
it.
that. That's wild.
A hive in the backyard, that's elite level pet owner right there. That's a different level. So You mentioned, so a colony can have thousands of bees, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned how someone could scale their colony. Can you, for context, could you kind of roughly define what is a small colony and how? Obviously, I would imagine there's no limit to the volume or the size of the colony, and then also the queen or the queens plural. I don't know if that's a thing. Is it like genetic characteristics that determine which bee is queen, or how does that work? This is getting ready to turn into like bees for dummies because I'm totally ignorant when it comes to all of this.
So a small colony could have anywhere from 5,000 bees, and a large colony can have up to 80,000 bees. Depends on how productive your bees are, and what type
That's
of
crazy.
environment that you provide for them. A queen, there's only one queen in a home, just like there's only one queen in your home, or one king in your home. There's only one queen in your home. She is the mother of all the bees. 98% of the bee population inside of a colony. So a colony is a family of bees. 98% of that are all female. There are male drones. Their only purpose in life as a drone. I'm sorry, True. I know he took my class. I feel so bad for him. Every time I have to tell this to the brothers, I feel bad. So the drone's only job is to mate and die. That's the only thing he does. And
So they got soft life.
He only mates once. He only mates one time. And that's the last time. It's the one and only and last time that he will mate.
One and done. One and done.
One and done. One
So
and
do
done.
they die? Do they die after that?
Yes, they die. Afterwards, their male parts disconnect from their bodies and they fall to the ground and they die.
Wow.
Yeah, so they spend a lot of their life being pampered and taken care of by the women inside of the colony, and to prep and prepare him to go out and mate with the queen to make more babies.
Interesting.
Are the queens territorial?
Absolutely.
Like so say you got one on this side of the yard. Are you able to have one on the other side of the yard? Or is
no, you can have hives next to each other. Now they won't let the other bees inside of their box, right? They would have to trick them. A lot of times they might bribe them to try to get in there to see what resources they have. But for the most part, no, they don't. They just stay to their own colonies. Their job solely is to take care of their queen that's inside of their box. Make sure she's alive, make sure she's productive, make sure she has everything she needs. And she only leaves the box one time, and that is to mate. She goes out, she mates with a drone, she comes back, and she never leaves the hive again. And then every day she's laying 1,500 eggs a day to have babies. And as long as she's doing that, her colony will take care of her. The moment she starts slipping or she gets too old and she ain't have enough babies or they think she's sickly, they will kill her and make a new queen.
Yikes. Yikes.
Bee life, man.
Right. So let's get into the acronym of the ABC. So it's agriculture, beekeeping, and composting.
It's agriculture, bees, and composting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your big three.
Yes, absolutely. Because those three things all go hand in hand, and all of those three things save the planet and feed people. So, agriculture, bees, and composting is why I started. And my whole thing when I started it in 2019 was to get me a school bus to gut out and turn into a mobile classroom where I would have stations set up inside of that bus, like seed starting stations, a composting station, vermicomposting, bees. It would be so kids would walk through the bus and there would be hands-on activities that they would be able to do that would teach them about everything agriculture, bees, and composting. And I got the idea because I saw a bus a while ago, and it was called the 3C bus. So Arizona is about the 3Cs, what's like citrus, cattle, cotton, right? And so this bus was gutted out, and they had like little exhibits where it was all about citrus, cattle, and cotton. And they had little cotton plants that the kids could touch, and they had like just like little stuff. And I was just like, oh, well, this is very basic. I can do this. And I think I could do it better. But then COVID hit, no funding for the bus, the school shut down. And so I had to do something different, which is why I went into teaching beekeeping to women and getting more involved in helping nonprofits start gardens.
Awesome. What you got, True? You sitting on something over there?
Yeah. Well, I was about to say earlier, she ain't lying about they won't let you in the hive, man. Because I seen some female bees like take them drones out, escort them out, man. It's crazy video, man. But when you were introduced, Nika, did you mention author?
No, I did not. No,
Okay.
I didn't.
Don't you got
Yeah, so I'm writing a series of children's books all based on agriculture, bees, and composting, but it's called the Eco Diversity Tales because all of them have some element of culture in it around our community. So my first book, which I just self-published and is now on sale, is Amanata, the African Queen Bee. And it's about how the quote unquote labeled Africanized bee got to the United States of America. And so there were bees in Africa. These bees in Africa were more resilient to sicknesses, produced more honey, and were just overall like just better hives. And so they decided that they wanted to take these bees from Africa and take them to Brazil and mate them with European bees because European bees are very much susceptible to disease and infestations with other bugs and stuff like that. So they wanted to take the traits of the bees they got from Africa and they wanted to genetically modify them with European bees. The African bees or the bees from Africa, which I can't say African bees, please edit that out. So the bees from Africa, those bees also were very protective of their queen and their colony, right? So they're a lot more protective, they're a lot more productive, and they're a lot more resistant to disease. And they wanted those traits within those European bees. So they bred them together. And when they bred them together, those bees escaped the lab in Brazil and made their way to the United States or North America. When they showed up in North America, those bees did not want to be contained in boxes like the European bee or the Italian bee or the German bee. Those bees are the ones that people label as killer bees around the United States. And so that the story that I'm writing is about the migration of a queen bee from Africa to the lab to the United States and finding her home here in the States. And a lot of my books are going to be around that. So the next book is about a worker bee. The third book is about a drone bee who's in love with a worker bee. And the fourth book is about a compost worm named Conrad, who lives in a community garden in what is considered the ghetto. And my other book is about an Aztec corn, and which looks like a black corn. It's the Aztec black corn, and how this corn is trying to get its village to keep harvesting and producing its seed so it can be passed down because agriculture is dying in its community. So they're all coming out, but Amanata, the African Queen Bee, is out now. And yeah, I'm really excited about the book series and about getting it out and putting a spin on agriculture so that we see ourselves in it and it reflects the stories that that we have in our migration to this country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's definitely hella interesting. I got a question though. Like, what are some of the nutritional benefits of incorporating the honey and other bee-related products into our diets? You know, especially in the undeserved communities with like limited access to fresh and natural food.
So I will say honey and honey products are very high in antioxidants. They're antimicrobial properties. There are gut related things that it helps with. It's basically a multivitamin. And when we're talking about underserved communities, we're thinking of more natural and cheaper ways to heal our bodies and heal ourselves. Honey and also pollen is something that we can definitely use to help fix things like gut issues, like I said, allergies and things like that. So um, bee products are extremely important, and you can find a beekeeper pretty much in any city that you're in to purchase honey from and use it to help with all types of ailments. It's been used in history for all types of things, whether that's healing wounds or healing different type of viruses or bacterials in the body. So, like, it's definitely one of those things from the earth that we can use to heal our body instead of using, processed and pharmaceutical drugs.
And it
That's
does
dope. I
not
heard that's for
expire,
asthma.
correct?
Does it help with asthma too? I heard, or is that wrong?
It does help with respiratory issues.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
It doesn't expire, correct?
No, honey does not go bad. Now, I will say that if it's mixed with something, it can go bad. But for the most part, no, honey has a shelf life of thousands of years. They pulled honey out of tombs that were 3,000 years old, and it was still good and edible.
That's
And
crazy.
they sold it for thousands of dollars for a teaspoon. So yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So I definitely, so since we're talking about shelf life, I saw a stat here, and this is like from 2022. Apparently in the US there were at least 125 million pounds of honey that was produced, and on a global scale 1.83 million metric tons. So considering the level of production for honey and the value, um, how would you grade, I guess, like the health status of the beekeeping industry and the sustainability of bees that we actually need to sustain our ecosystem? How is that? Are we in the green? Are we kind of like amber, or are we in the red? Is it a state of emergency in some sense?
I would say in a sense that it is a state of emergency, and I'll say why, because we're emitting more pollution into our environment than we've ever done before. That affects the bees, right? So I would say that it's getting to be a harder thing for beekeepers to keep up with, because a lot of times our bees are dying for reasons that we can't help, right? If our neighbor is spraying, my bees die, right? If my community or my government is spraying to control weed population, my bees die. Like, and so it's always a constant investment, right? And so, and then for me, I don't keep bees for honey. I keep bees for educational purposes, for spiritual purposes, and for wellness purposes. I think that I'm not always pulling honey from my hives. I do pull if they have an excess, but I'm not pulling commercially just to sell people honey, which is why sometimes I don't have honey, and people be like, "Yo, Sister Nika, where the honey at?" Brother True's one of them, and I get it, but it's like pillaging a community for all of its resources and then expecting it to thrive, right? So, like, for me, I don't always pull honey from hives, and sometimes I will buy from another local beekeeper because I do know other local beekeepers. I also have to trust that beekeeper that they're handling their bees in a humane way, not just for the bees, but for the people who are going to consume the honey that they're selling. And so there's one person that I buy from locally if I don't have it, to keep up with the demand of some people. And usually I only do it if I want to raise money for the program. I'm getting ready to start a class. I want to make sure that enough women can attend the program. And if I can raise money to pay for someone to be in the program, then I do that. So I'm not always pulling from my bees. I don't think that commercial beekeeping on a mass scale is good for the environment, good for the bees, or good for the people. We're doing more harm than good. But what I do think is a great idea is if everybody had a beehive in their backyard, if everybody had a chicken coop in their backyard, if everybody was growing a vegetable in their backyard. So, for instance, if Brother True found out that he had a knack for growing tomatoes, he would spend his time growing tomatoes for his community. Brother, you would be growing onions for your community. I would be growing peppers, and then we can bring that together and we can feed each other. And that's a more humane way to make sure that we're feeding each other and we're also taking care of the planet at the same time.
And then everybody could wake up and say F work.
Facts.
There you go. Full circle. So,
Facts.
okay. Quick question. You talked about the extraction of the honey. This is something that I never thought about, but what effect does that have on the bees? Is it inevitable that you're damaging or is to the detriment of the colony when you extract? Or is there like a humane way to harvest honey without damaging the hive? Is that possible?
So, I mean, there are ways to do it humanely, to extract honey, because basically what you want to do is when you are a beekeeper, there's a box that your bees live in, and then there's a box that they store honey in. The box that they store honey in is not going to be, again, where they live. So you're not necessarily harming them, like taking a home away from them by moving it away, but you're taking resources that they store up to feed themselves in the winter when we have less stuff to pollinate, right? When they have less resources. So you're taking away from them, right? Those are things that they store in order to produce queen royal jelly, which is to feed the queen, and bee bread to feed the babies that are hatching within the hive. So you're just taking away from their resources. It's like somebody coming in and wiping out half of your cabinet in your house and half of your refrigerator. Like, no, you're not gonna starve to death, but bro, I just worked to put all that stuff in my cabinets and you just came through and snatched it out. So I'm I mean, and I will say there are new mechanisms that people have, which are like the flow hives, where you don't actually go in the hive at all. It has like a little crank, and then the honey drops out. It separates the comb, and that's supposed to be a more humane way. I myself don't think that's a more humane way, only because I believe that if you're going to keep bees, then you need to build a relationship with them bees and you need to work them. It shouldn't be a set and forget thing. And I just come and pillage when I'm ready to have honey. There's just a different approach to different beekeepers. And some people have so many hives and they're commercial and there's 300 or 400 hives on a space. And there's no way that they have a relationship with that many hives. So it's just a take situation, right? It's just I have you because I want something from you. I don't operate that way in life in general. So I'm definitely not going to operate that way as a beekeeper.
Interesting. And then in terms of like the commercialization of it, like you have Manuka honey, you've got just like the typical honey that you would see. How much is that sensationalized, or is there actually validity to like the quality of, I guess, the different grades of honey based upon, I don't know, the way that they were kept or the type of bee? Is that like how does one know, like, I guess the quality of the honey that they're buying? Because we do know that obviously there's like I guess I don't want to say the common honey, but you have honey that has like additives and stuff in it, and it's not, some would say it's not like truly, the substance that you think it is. It's probably, I don't know if it has preservatives or what, but speak to that as far as how it is presented in terms of like shelf placement and things of that nature, and some of the terminology that is associated with the different types of honey.
Okay, so that's a good question. I'm going to say about 90%, if not more, of the honey that you buy in the grocery store is fake.
90? 90?
90.
Wow.
90. Most of it is cooked down sugar to look like honey and
Damn.
high fructose corn syrup to look like honey, or added to their honey so that they can sell it on a mass scale, right? So they may be able to produce 50 gallons of honey, and then they mix it with a lot of high fructose corn syrup and sugar and water, and they cook it down and so that they can triple. It's like the crack game, like you mixing stuff together to multiply your supply so you can get it out to the community. And that's what it is. The safest way for you to know where your honey comes from is to buy from local beekeepers. Like there is, I think it's Arizona mesquite honey. They sell in the grocery store. They're local. You can visit them. They have a lot of hives. They're a commercial beekeeper, but you can visit them. You can ask them questions about their production. You can ask them about what they have in their hive. The best way for you to get honey is to go to a farmer's market or know a beekeeper. So you can ask them personally what their practices are, and they should be able to answer that for you confidently and tell you if they have something that they're adding in it. Like, and if they can't, and if they don't say, yeah, come and visit my hives, or I would love for you to come and visit my production plan, stop by. If they can't tell you that, then I wouldn't suggest you buy from them. People have seen my hives. They know where my hives are at, right? Like, and people, I know the people that I purchase from when I don't have honey, right? I know I visited their location. They trained me in beekeeping. I know their practices, and so I trust getting honey from them. You should approach honey the same way, because a lot of stuff that they're out here selling you is not real honey, and there's no benefit to you eating it at all besides a sugar rush. That's it.
Damn. I'm a little saddened by that because I really enjoy honey, but I shouldn't be surprised because it's just like everything else that they do.
Right. Yeah. And you should be saddened, because that means that they don't care about you. They're not selling that for your benefit. Most people, when we're deciding that we're going to choose honey as our sweetener or our alternative to sugar, we're doing it for health reasons, and they're doing it for money reasons. Just keep that in mind.
Indeed. Damn.
They stepping on the honey. They stepping on the honey like dope, man. Ain't that a bitch? That's crazy.
That's what happens when
That's all bad.
You live in a capitalist system.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're gonna figure out
your honey and your seeds too. They do it with your seeds too. There are about 3 or 4 giant corporations like Bayer, Monsanto, Johnson and Johnson that own patents to 98% of the seeds on this planet.
It's crazy.
Man.
You gotta ask questions. Ask questions. Ask where your food comes from. If y'all shop at the grocery store, ask the produce people where you get this produce from. Which local farms are you sourcing your stuff from? And if they can't tell you where local farms they're sourcing it from, then it's most likely coming from somewhere where they're spraying it to make it look beautiful for you to have on your plate and want to buy at the end of the day. So we buy from them, hold them accountable, ask them questions. If they can't answer those questions for you, like where they source the produce from, don't buy from them and don't trust them.
Bars.
Facts. Yeah, facts.
Bars. Wow. Well, I appreciate the information. You dropped a lot on us that I'm definitely going to challenge myself to, lean into it a little more and do a little more due diligence on what exactly, I'm immersing myself in when I'm walking through that grocery store, snatching stuff off. That's something that we got to do, because it's a twisted thing that we live in, because it's like you're going there to nourish, right? And I always imagine if I was just like a totally ignorant person and I didn't have association with the people that I do that at least have some knowledge of some of these things, if you just a person mid to low income and you just trying to feed yourself or your family and you just going in there and you just getting cooked, like you just walking into a hell of a booby trap, not even knowing, you know, and it's just wrecking people's lives, families, communities, because it's just processed junk that is like it's like a weapon. You know what I mean? It's a weapon that they have incentivized themselves to like destroy people. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about.
It's definitely a weapon. I mean, and I was definitely in that situation. I was a young mom. I lived in the projects. I was a single mom. I had to decide on what I was going to eat and where I was going to buy groceries from. And most of the places that were in my community were like liquor stores that had overpriced, rotting food to sell to you. So, like, it is definitely a weapon. It's always been a weapon. It's always going to be a weapon. When we think about the wars that happen in history throughout our lives, and before, a lot of times when people invade countries, the first place they hit is the people's food source. Why? Because if you can control the food, you can control the people, right?
Yep.
So, yes, it's a weapon. They've just found a better way to use it against us. And how they do that is by making it look shiny for you in the grocery store, by telling you that you're going to get the best prices for the best produce, and they're lying to your face. It's barely even qualified as food.
Facts.
Facts. And then they program the children to pressure the parents for, you know, the man. It's crazy how it's like evil genius type shit. You know what I'm saying? Like to the point where your kid identifies with something that is not, it's not even food. It's literally a chemical that's been whipped up. And, you know, sometimes when I'm in the store, I'm just kind of looking at people's carts. I can't help it. And I'm not judging people, but especially if they have children, it's just like, damn, like, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy.
Flaming hot Cheetos for dinner.
Right. They even got
Right.
the flaming hot Cheeto mac and cheese flavor. Like, it's getting ridiculous out here.
Like, and who do you think that their target audience is with that? Like,
Oh yeah.
definitely. And then you give your kids that food, and then you send them to school, and then they put labels on them based on the foods that they're supplying our communities with, that are causing them to behave in ways that is not conducive to them sitting down in a classroom for 8 hours. Make it make sense.
It's insanity.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Facts.
So
we got two more questions.
Oh, go ahead, Quan. You got it.
So what are some of the unique challenges that beekeepers face today, and then what opportunities exist for like expanding beekeeping practice that supports the cultural heritage and environmental sustainability?
Gotcha. So I'll say that some of the unique challenges that beekeepers face is that we're like dodging pesticides, right? We're having to outsmart disease. We're having to combat weather changes and climate change in the country. So, like, we have to be on point for all of these different things. In Arizona specifically, it is getting hotter every year. What some scientists have found is that the higher the temperature is, and the harder it is for a queen to regulate her body temperature, that slows down her productivity. So we're in a space where it's constantly heating up, and we're on the verge of a drought, right? And so we're having to fight all of those things as well as misinformation, because if you go on YouTube right now or Instagram right now, you could find a well-intentioned beekeeper with no suit on saying, "This is how I went, and I scooped up these bees and I found them and I put them in the truck." No suit, no information, no backstory, and people are getting stung. So, like, there's a lot of things as a beekeeper that are challenges that I feel like we have to to face on a regular basis. But I'm also hopeful because I feel like now, because people are noticing that there's a change in migration patterns of bees and how food is being processed in this country and grown in this country, it's kind of getting people to think about being more mindful and sustainable and their everyday life. So less people may want to stop spraying pesticides and just pull a weed in their yard because they understand that that's not just poisoning the weeds, but it's also poisoning them and their neighbors and any bugs in the environment that we need. So I will say that even though we are in a space where there's a lot of practices that we do that aren't conducive to beekeeping. People are more aware of that now and asking more questions, which is great. Like, we're having this conversation. People are wanting to know about the practices and importances and how you can get into beekeeping. And so this is what uplifts me, is that I get to share this information with the community, maybe answer some questions, dispel some myths that are out there, and even maybe motivate one or two people to decide that they want to be beekeepers or grow some food themselves. And so if I can get one person that after I'm gone that says, I am a farmer, I grow food, and I keep bees and I sustain my family and I feed my community, and it was because I went to a class that Nika taught.
Mission accomplished.
I've done it. So yeah, while there are some challenges, I'm not scared of the challenges, because I think that those challenges breed us into a new space of having to think outside of the box in ways that we engage and educate the community and bring them into these practices that we have done for hundreds of years, but we're not the face of, even though we were brought here specifically for those skills.
Indeed.
Bars.
That's a word. So for those that are interested in learning more or connecting with you for consultation or education, I should say, abcmec.org. You can see it on the screen there. Where else are you available? How else can people help you in your efforts and beekeeping as an overall practice? How can people help that effort?
Awesome. So I have abcmec.org, like on the screen. I also have bayhive.org. That's BAEHIVE.org, and that's about my beekeeping. I also have heartandsoilgarden.org. Heart and Soil is a community garden that I run. We invite community members to come in and help us grow, maintain the space, and we give out produce in the cooler months. We ain't doing it right now, it's too hot. But when it cools down, we usually do produce giveaways twice a month. And so you can come through. We don't really ask you for anything, just what your zip code is and how many people are in your family, and you can take home as much produce as you want until it's all gone. I'm also on Facebook under Heart and Soil People's Garden and Bayhive Beekeepers, and also ABC Mobile Education Center. I'm on Instagram under ABC _ Heart and Soil and Bayhive _ Beekeepers, and Urban Farmer Nika, and I'm on TikTok as Bee Mama Nika, and so yeah, I'm everywhere.
Yeah,
my husband does marketing. Y'all already know he be on it. You need this. So yeah.
No, that's awesome. Plenty of opportunity for people to connect with you on various channels. I'm hoping people really take advantage of this and just enhance your efforts and inspire them to, keep this thing going. You spoke to the fact that this is another one of those things that is like, it seems to be a lost art, in a sense that we just got to reinvigorate. And I think individuals like yourself are a prime example of a spark to promote that type of fire, to ignite, this type of common knowledge that we used to have. I feel like generations ago, people just kind of knew this stuff. And I'm just like, man, we got to get back to that somehow.
Right, brother, you know it. You just need to remember. And how you remember is by putting your hands in the dirt and giving yourself an obesity. That's how you remember. You remember. We all remember.
Indeed. So yeah, it's in due time, as they say. We're gonna get to it. So man, this was awesome. Thank you. I do wanna at some point, because you did mention like the seeds and everything. I think there's another conversation we can have about that. So if you're open to it, perhaps we can bring you back on later and we can kind of, open that can of worms as well and talk about, the significance of that and what we could and should be doing in terms of the seeds. Yeah, because I feel like the hourglass is flipped over and that sand is running out with these entities trying to, monopolize and create all kind of barriers on what you can do, what you can get access to. When the last time we had seeded grapes, y'all? I'm still looking.
I will say, also before I go, I will say that I will be doing a book signing and storytelling event on September the 27th, Friday at Grassroots Bookstore in downtown Phoenix. And so come check me out. You can order the books online on Amazon. You can also check it out at ecodiversitytales.com and buy the book. If you buy one ahead of time and you come to the book signing event, the first 20 people that bring their books will get a jar of honey to take home with them. So order your book and then come to the event on Friday, September 27th at Grassroots Bookstore in downtown Phoenix.
There you go. There it is. Brother True, can you close us out, bro?
Yes, sir. All right, so thank y'all for tuning in on the Grow Unified and Active.
We can't hear you.
Oh man, what's going on? Y'all can't hear me?
Right now we can.
Now
you better now. Yep, you better now.
Well, I'll just say thank you everybody who tuned in, and at the Grow we are unified to build and a fruitful legacy of love, equity, growth, ancestry, cooperation, and yield. And I took one of the classes, so I'm gonna be one of those people building that farm and continuing it on. You feel me?
Indeed. And until next time, y'all, check us out. If you got questions, hit us on Facebook, Instagram, the Growth Spot Squad, or Growth Spot at Growth Spot Squad. You can also email thegrowthspot@gmail.com if you're interested in a particular topic, have questions, or just any kind of feedback. We're always open to that. Until next time, y'all, peace.
Peace.